Welcome to Module 4 of Co-Teaching for Durham Public Schools. The next co-teaching model we'll discuss is alternative teaching. In most class groups, occasions will arise in which several students need specialized attention. In alternative teaching, one teacher takes the responsibility for the large group, while the other teacher works with a smaller group of students. It should be noted that the smaller group of students does not necessarily have to be students with disabilities. It should be a mixed group of students based on student need. The ideal percentage of time to use this approach is about 20 to 30% of the time.
Okay. Did she jump a little bit? Did she jump around a little bit? See if you can think of some descriptive words that describes how she jumped. Okay, go ahead and look at the next sentence. Go ahead and look at the next sentence. The sentence is, then she turned around. Get some ideas in your head. Think. Raise your hand when you can tell me. You can use the words to describe how she turned around. Brittany?
Slowly. Slowly.
Slowly. Tell me what a curtsy is,
Can you
Sarah.
close your eyes and describe and look at this? Can you close your eyes and think
it's a
about
bow.
it?
That's how bow
To the
reads.
room?
Close your eyes.
Can you?
Visualize her doing that.
Alright. Alright, now let's look at the next sentence we have. Now I want you to take your adjective list
Ideas. You can
and
add.
I want you to look at the third sentence.
Okay, I think we've got roll. Give me one more. Left the stage.
Beautiful.
Now, this
Make
is
sure
the next
whenever
thing
you're
here. A vivid picture in their mind about
Right,
what
you go in
ballerina
here and you
is
say
the
ballerina,
rest of the day.
and you come up with some other word. You might think that she was really happy and jolly. And you write those underneath there, exactly, to use to describe this ballerina. And you can use some of these, or you can think of some other words of your own. Some adverbs that describe that verb dance. And I have a sheet of some adverbs that you can use to fill in your blanks. And then here's your adverb sheet. There. Since you don't have any sheets, she will find. Alright, can you fill those two blocks with words that look like that for me? Okay. Alright, let's see what you have there. Oh, very nice. When we describe a verb, do we use adjectives or adverbs? Adverbs, you're right. And we'll use adverbs, and most adverbs end in what? You know what two letters they end in? L-Y. So we need to use words like lovely and beautifully and swiftly and let's see, gracefully or bravely or proudly or carefully. That's to describe them.
So with alternative teaching, one group gets a main lesson and the smaller group gets a reteaching lesson. This can be for an entire class or it can be for just a few minutes. You might want to use this when the students' goals and understanding of concepts vary, but high levels of mastery are expected for all. You may want to use it for enrichment, and you may want to use it when some students are working in a parallel curriculum. This requires a high level of planning time to make sure that the needs of all students are met. The next model is called teaming. With teaming, both teachers are delivering the same instruction at the same time. Some teachers refer to this as having one brain and two bodies, or some people call it tag team teaching. Most co-teachers consider this approach the most complex, but also at the same time the most satisfying way to co-teach. However, it is the approach that is most dependent on teacher styles. The ideal percentage of time for this approach is 20 to 30%.
You're going to be using sensory words, and we're going to be talking about what that means, similes and metaphors. This is a beginning of a lesson. It's going to take us a couple days, 2 or 3 days probably. We're going to begin today by writing a descriptive paragraph and continue on and turn those and you use those to help write a story later on.
We're going to begin by remembering what we talked about earlier in the year, some of our sensory words and similes and metaphors, things we've talked about earlier.
Who can tell me, what does it mean by sensory words? Sometimes we don't always use the word sensory. What does that mean, Dominique?
Relate to your senses.
That relate to your senses. Yes, your senses. Now, when you think of your senses, I'm sure you know those. Usually when you look at something, you get some kind of thought about it. And so we're going to be dealing with that issue too.
Remember earlier in the year when we visited Simile City, and we had, what was his name, Miles Magnum and Jane Doe? And Jane Doe was a little confused. Why was that? Remember our visit from them? Why was that? People kept using phrases, using like and as, and comparing things using like or as, and she just didn't get it, did she? She was really.
We're going to actually give you some pictures. And these pictures are going to be pictures which are going to make you think. Put yourself in that situation and say, what do I think about this? What kind of feelings, smells, tastes, touches, things I see, what do I hear when I look at this picture? And we're going to hand these out to you, and what your group is going to do is we're going to give you 2 pictures apiece, and we're going to let your group choose the one picture that you want to do. This organizer reminds you about the senses. And when you see the sight, one say, oh, this is what I see. You write down your notes here. What do you see? What feelings do you have? What do you think you would smell if you were there? What do you think you could feel if you were there? So this will help each of your groups to think through your idea. This is your. You guys chose a picture? Oh, look at that. I think you can think of a lot of things for that one. What are you thinking?
These cows look like 3 heads. Look at that.
Got the 3 heads put together.
Oh, okay.
What kind of how do they look? How do they look? Do you think they look kind of sad? Why do they look kind of sad?
Yeah, because it looks like their head is stuck between the little gates.
Oh, so do you think what would that be if they're sad? A feeling. Maybe they're sad. And that's something, maybe you can think about why they're sad. Take a look at what they're doing.
They're frowning.
So that's what you see, isn't it? Frowning.
It's like
Frowning.
I see 4 cows.
3 cows.
Oh, I thought this one. He said that he just got back from a hard day's work.
Very good observation.
Okay,
or even making assumptions about his job, maybe. So we're seeing and assuming that he's come from a hard day's work. Nice. Brinks is still in charge of it, aren't you? Helping him. Sure. That's excellent. Excellent sensory.
So with team teaching, its co-designed instruction is presented by 2 teachers as an instructional team. Both teachers are teaching the entire classroom at the same time. You might want to use it when you have compatible teaching pairs. When instructional conversation is needed. That's when teachers can kind of model out loud what they're thinking with each other and kind of model that instructional conversation for the students. Also, when you need to demonstrate types of interactions that you like to see from your students. The planning time for team teaching is rather high. The last 2 models we'll discuss are one teach, one assist, and one teach, one observe. For one teach, one observe, one of the advantages of co-teaching is that more detailed observation of students engaged in the learning process can occur. With this approach, for example, co-teachers can decide ahead of time what types of specific observational information they need to gather during instruction, and then they can agree on a system for gathering those data. Afterwards, the teachers should analyze the information that was gathered together. The ideal percentage of time for the usage of this is about 5% of the time, maybe 10% of the time, depending on the time of the school year and the needs of the students and teachers. One Teach, One Assist allows for one person to keep primary responsibility for teaching while the other professional circulates through the room providing unobtrusive assistance to students as needed. Again, we don't want to see this approach being used very often because parity of teachers is pretty much lost at this point. And so the ideal percentage of time for use is very minimal, again, 5 to 10% of the time, based on what's going on during the school year and student and teacher need during that time frame.
0 plus 0 plus 4 is 4. 1 plus 6 is 7 plus 1 is 0 plus 8 is 8 plus 4 is 12. 12 plus 2 is 14 plus 1 is 1 times 9 is okay. 0 plus 0 plus 0 plus 9 is 0 plus 7 is 7 plus 1 is 3 plus 2 is oh wait, 589. I don't add the remainder. Oh, add the remainder. Okay. Add the remainder plus 28. Now I want you to give a name to your partner's quadrilateral.
So for One Teach, One Assist or One Teach, One Observe, that's when you want to collect data or monitor instruction, and teachers would share this role. Sometimes it might be the EC teacher who is assisting or observing, and sometimes it might be the Gen Ed teacher who is assisting or observing. But either way, you're going to have a purpose for that and analyze the data together. So you might want to use it when you're new to a co-teaching situation. That should be only for a very short period of time. Or when you have questions about student need that need to be answered, or when you need to compare target students across classes. The planning time for either of these approaches is very low. However, this should be used as a short-term model. We don't want to see this model used a lot in our classrooms, as it's not taking advantage of having two highly qualified professional teachers within the classroom. While all of the co-teaching approaches we previously reviewed are valid and valuable, the effectiveness of each is determined by matching the right approach to a specific lesson and group of students. For example, team teaching can be extremely effective for some lessons, but for other lessons, like when the teacher needs to introduce new but very complex math skills, it can be very limiting because it's a large group approach. Parallel teaching, on the other hand, may not be as effective as team teaching if the lesson involves a discussion of current political events. It may be more beneficial to have all of the students involved in the discussion in order to present a broader perspective of ideas. These are just some possibilities. The co-teaching approach used to deliver instruction must be appropriate to the specific lesson and the content level and skills of the students. Selection of the appropriate co-teaching approach is contingent on skills that need to be taught, the learning needs and skills of students, and the comfort and skill level of both teachers in delivering the instructional content. Many lessons will not be delivered using only one approach. For example, teachers may introduce the lesson using a team teaching approach, then use parallel or station teaching to actually teach the skills. At the end of the lesson, they again may utilize team teaching to summarize and complete lesson closure. The co-teaching approach does not drive the lesson. Rather, the lesson objectives and needs of the students need to dictate the co-teaching approach that is used. Teachers need to consider trying several of the co-teaching models and altering their methods regularly. I want you to think about, take some time to reflect with your co-teacher on the approach that you're most comfortable with, on the approach that you think that you are currently implementing the majority of the time, and the approach that you would like to attempt to implement more of the time, the one you want to focus on first for implementation, then one for second, so that you can get a well-rounded skill set for co-teaching. Thank you for participating in this module. The next modules will focus on classroom management and how you can adjust your physical learning environment to enhance the learning of your students.